Hello and welcome to the Passionpreneur series, your number one place for entrepreneurs, content creators, and new coaches. I am so excited isn't even the word to use. I can't even think of the right phrase to use right now of how I feel about this interview. I have been waiting patiently for Miri
Very patiently.
to become available, but trust me, it has been worth the wait. I met this amazing, beautiful woman in February, I believe, February at
Yeah.
Social Media Marketing World here in San Diego. And she was the first talk that I went to, and she absolutely blew me away. Her energy, her wisdom, what she shared, she actually inspired me to the point it's like, I want to do that one day. I want to get to that point where I know my stuff so well, I can get on stage and fire up the crowd and get them excited about wanting to learn more about this topic. And in this case, it's storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us have been hearing this phrase for a long time. Storytelling is not exactly new, but as far as using it as a marketing tool in our business, kind of is for a lot of us. And so, what better than to have the queen of storytelling, Miri Rodriguez. Now, Miri, I'm going to do a short little bio, but I'm going to have you take it away. But Miri is head of storytelling at Microsoft and head of Global Internship, and has an amazing book. Have to do that as well. We'll talk more about this
Thank
later on.
you.
But I actually picked this up at the conference. I tracked
Yes.
it down, and I was like, I need your book.
I know. It wasn't even the market yet. It was you got one of the first ones. That's so exciting.
And what I love those two is, of course, you signed it. So
Yes,
it's
I did.
forever. It's
I
forever.
know.
So today's topic is going to be storytelling. And so I want you to get your pens, your notepad out there, take tons of notes, save this interview, go back to it, because you are going to learn what storytelling really is, what that really looks like in your business, and why it's so important. So without further ado, Miri, I would love for you to take it away. Please
Thank
introduce yourself.
you. What a
And
great
just, yeah.
introduction. Thank you so much, Brandy. I remember when I met you in San Diego, you were just such a ray of sunshine. You just came at me, and I think we hugged. I mean, I was just like, I was like, let's just hug. So you just bring this amazing light. So I'm so excited to be part of this broadcast for your audience, and hello everyone. It's really a pleasure, honestly, to share insights on storytelling. I know, like you, I first didn't understand it as it was. I know it was a buzzword for me when I was asked to do this job for core services engineering at Microsoft. It was daunting. I just had no idea what I was getting myself into, and I knew that it was about telling stories. I just didn't know how to start. I didn't know what it meant. I searched a whole lot for a good definition of these concepts, did not find one. So I created my own. I went and I started doing a lot of interviews for people on LinkedIn that call themselves storytellers, and that had been in the craft for a while in different industries, in different sectors of the industries, people that are producers, writers, people that have done this. You have a chief storyteller at Microsoft. So people that have been doing this for a while. And so I didn't ask them what is storytelling. I asked them what is not, and got a lot of answers from that. And from those answers, I kind of came up with my own definition of storytelling. And that's actually what's in the book. And it's, for me, storytelling is the emotional transfer of information, of content. And it's done, of course, through the elements of a story, which is a character, a plot, and conclusion. So it has to have all three elements, but for me, it needs to be something emotional. Stories that are not inconsequential, those that really capture our hearts, are stories that drive an emotion piece up to that, which I call a universal truth. A universal truth is an emotion that we all can attest to. We don't have to explain it. So sadness and happiness and embarrassment and empowerment, I don't have to explain that to anyone. From all of our lived experiences, no matter our gender, our age, who we are, we get that feeling. So that's what stories with intention do. They capture us, and they make content emotional.
I love that. I love that you just said stories with intention.
Yes.
Yeah,
They're crafted.
Yeah, because we can all tell a story, right?
Right.
But how do you make it really land with your customer, with your client, whether it's on social media, in a newsletter, in a blog, however you're presenting it? how do you really tap into that emotional part in the story?
Yeah, and for me, that was the daunting task. So once I learned, that I defined it as something emotional, I'm like, okay, that's great. Now, how do I do it? Right? So it was like the how. I knew it needed to be intentional. I knew it needed to be a design approach. It didn't just, I didn't just go out and told the story. It needed to be a design approach. So I was actually taking, finishing my master's degree. I was doing a certification in design thinking, also with UX design. And I was exposed to these ideas about a design persona, a design experience, and of course the design thinking steps, which is 5 steps. And I asked my professor, I said, can we prototype stories, right? That's something that we can prototype. And he said, absolutely, you can prototype whatever you want. It's a product. And I was like, oh, good. So I took my real life example of my own work and submitted it through that 5 steps. And the result was just unbelievable. I would have never imagined that it would work this way. So much so that the reason you saw me speaking at that conference is I began to go out of Microsoft, go inside and outside Microsoft, sharing this idea of stories with design thinking, and really teaching different functions, different people, and then consulting with agencies and companies to do this work as well. So that has been for me an incredible run, and that's actually what the book is about as well.
I love that. So can you tell us more about coming at it from that perspective of storytelling with design thinking, or from design thinking?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's 5 steps: design thinking. It's empathize, it's define, ideate, prototype, and then test. And I broke these down very meticulously in my own space. Again, this is something that I was submitting myself to because my task. So in core services engineering, my job was to take 2 functional areas. At Microsoft, we have 6. So I was owning 2 of these, which was data and AI, and also security, and really talk about our digital transformation. So what we're doing inside Microsoft to our IT pros outside Microsoft, our clients. And so it had to be high technical content, very deep technical, but also connected stories. So I was like, how do I marry the 2? I mean, this is, how do I make this emotional? It's just technical content. So that's where design thinking came in. And I tell you, if I speak to any industry, banking, people that say, oh, my content's too dry, I'm like, it is. If you can put, a technical paper into a story, you can do pretty much anything.
Right.
So design thinking starts with empathy. And that was, to me, obviously, it is the first and the last step in its cycle. And that's when I learned a lot about empathy. And I think today people are talking about empathy a lot. When I started the work 3+ years ago, nobody was talking about empathy as a soft skill. I learned it is a soft skill. I learned there's 3 levels of empathy. I learned I wasn't empathetic. It wasn't one of my strong suits in my strengths profile. I was actually number 33 out of 35 attributes of a person can have. So I was like, of all people, I can't even do this work. So I am living proof, number 1, that you can do the work and you can become an empath. Is a thing. I've become an empath. Well, I keep trying. I'm not complete. I won't consider myself. I'm a work in progress, I tell you. But if I can do it, anybody can. So yeah, it starts with empathy, and learning empathy is truly around understanding it is a soft skill. Empathy is an experience. It's not just a soft skill. So you actually, I often say, it's not just putting yourself in someone else's shoes, is walking a whole lot in their shoes before you get it. So it's a practice. It's something that we all practice. And the 3 levels really teach us to think about ourselves as humans, think about our audiences as humans, think about our corporations, our brands as humans. We're always talking about humanizing our brand, especially for entrepreneurs. We want our brands to show up and be connected with our clientele and have that relationship. And oftentimes we lose that in the process as the brand begins to grow. And so one of the things around empathy is to keep the brand human, allow it to make mistakes. It was born one day. It has friends, it has foes, it has competitors. If you keep it human, you allow yourself to be not just polished all the time and perfect all the time. You can apologize if you make a mistake. You can change your mission and say, I changed my mind. Humans change their mind all the time. So really humanizing it means something different under the empathy lens.
Just to step in for a second, I feel like that automatically just kind of relieves a lot of weight from the business, from the brand, knowing it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be one thing
Yeah.
for the lifetime of it.
Yeah,
There,
because it isn't. It's an entity and it grows. I did a 3-month research about how Gen Z and Gen Alpha are looking at brands, how they're seeing brands. There's a lot of information, a lot of data showing that, number one, not only these newer generations, but the older generations, Gen Xers and even Boomers, are now they're becoming purposeful buyers. That means that they are not just considering the product for the product itself, but for what the brand stands for. So now the brand has an opportunity to showcase core values, to show up human, to say, hey, this product is not just a product. If you buy it, you're also funding something else that helps society. And so all this idea of social advocacy, environment, we want to leave a legacy, and so our companies leave a legacy. And so it's asking ourselves, what is that legacy? Does it still make sense? Maybe it doesn't make sense 2 years from now. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to change your mission statement. It's not one size fits all forever. We evolve, channels evolve, customers evolve, and brands need to start evolving with it.
do you feel like brands that that are a certain size have that capability a little easier than the larger ones, or does it really matter?
No. I've seen it's a mentality. I've seen smaller brands having such a hard time, especially when they're just kind of small businesses, 1-2 years in, they've established themselves, they think they found their niche, and so they're harder to, they're like, I got it, I'm not going to move away from here. There's just a little bit, especially with small businesses, I think entrepreneurs, I have my own business, so I know, and I can attest to that. I'm guilty of that, because it's like you find, and you're like, I need to just not move, nobody move my cheese, I'm right here, right? So but there has to be that flexibility, because as I said, it's continuous change in the environment, in the market. There's competitors coming in all the time. We've seen right now with the current climate, a lot of brands are asking Miri, should I pivot my product, my service? What do I do next?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of small businesses have suffered from this global pandemic. And so we should always think about how to be nimble and how to be flexible, not just because there could be a global pandemic, but just for the natural changes that happen in the market.
Right. I had the opportunity to speak with a branding expert recently, and she's worked with everyone from small businesses to Fortune 500s to nonprofits. Mm-hmm. And what she's really been stressing to her clients is that, yes, it's a global pandemic. You need to be able to pivot to what's happening, but you also need to be thinking about after the future, right? Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you're working in two businesses at the same time. You're working in business right now, but then also the business tomorrow.
That's right. And I think to that point, I think the right now is building equity for that future. So whatever you're doing is you're gaining that loyalty and that trust from the customer, so that later on you can cash in from that equity. You can build from the equity that you've built at this time. So it is you're right. It is a twofold approach for businesses, big and small. And it is definitely easier sometimes for bigger businesses. But being at Microsoft, I can tell you, even corporations like Microsoft are feeling the brunt of a global pandemic. So we're all seeing it, and it's unfortunate, but it's also, especially for entrepreneurs, if you have an entrepreneurial mind and heart, you see opportunity. You see, and these are the times where you see opportunity. And so it is a time to create and build, and not just retreat or pivot. It is a time to find new ways to do things. And from that, necessity is the mother of invention. So it's really a great time to start thinking differently. And if you are thinking about your brand mission, change it now. If you want to change your story, this is the time. So
I love that. Okay, so we got empathy.
Yes. Second one is to define. So empathy, again, there's 3 levels. We won't get into that, it's too much, but it's really empathizing with 3 audiences. It is you're empathizing with your main audience, actually, and your extended audience, knowing who they are, knowing where they're going, listening to them, empathizing with yourself as a human, knowing that, recognizing your own emotions and how that plays into your business, recognizing that your emotions drive some of the business as well. And so don't just push them aside and think, I'm just just an entrepreneur. I don't need to be thinking about me. No, you need to be thinking about you. You're part of that process and that environment and that journey. And then the brand needs to act human, humanize itself, and be empathetic to itself. And so the next one is define. You define the characters in your story. You define your story mission. A lot of people don't stop to first drive a mission to the story. Tell the story what to do. What is it going to go do? Where is it going to go? What's the point of me telling the story? I often use a 3-part approach to a story mission. It's really simple. The first one is my story is dedicated to blank. So put in and list those audiences, recognizing that it is a global time. If you put it out on social media, even if it's not your intended audience, somebody else can see it. So what does that mean? How can it land? So having that recognition and that consideration. The second one is my story is dedicated to, so it can help on blank. What is that story going to do? You may have many stories. That's okay. And you should have different stories. One story serves to inspire. The other one could serve for a call to action. One serves to inform. So it's different ways that you can use story structure, but really define what that looks like. What is the story going to do? It can help them do blank. And then it can make them feel something blank. And that's the key part, again, to make it emotional. So a practical example of this is Microsoft. We changed our story mission from a PC on every desk and every home to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. So our story mission is dedicated to every person and organization on the planet, and to help them achieve more and to make them feel empowered. We all know what it is, or to not feel empowered.
Right. So, okay, just so I'm clear.
Yeah.
With storytelling, it's not only, let's say, customer facing, but it's
Right.
also within the organization too.
100%. The
Okay.
brand story has the power to activate culture, and it has done it for Microsoft. I've been there pre and post, and I'm still there. So it is something that I've seen, that transformation when you change the brand story and you say, you know what, this is what we're going to be about. This is now our story, and you own it as an employee. You are a storyteller for the brand, and you live that story. So you become the story, right? We're all part of that brand. So for you as an entrepreneur, if you define that story for your brand and you say, this is why we exist, this is how we're going to go out there, this is how we want to make our people feel, what is that feeling, that universal truth, that's your gauge meter. That's, you're going to continue asking yourself whenever you tweet something, whenever you post something on Instagram, is it making them feel blank? Is it making them feel blank? So it's basically, you keep your stories aligned no matter what the format is of the story. It kind of consistently drives that storyline through all of the channels and all the different forms and structures.
That makes perfect sense. Okay.
Yeah, and then so you define the story mission, then you define the 3 basic elements: your character, your plot, and conclusion. You take time to define all the characters, list them. Who is your audience? Who's the main character? Who's the hero in your story? Who's not? Is there a hero? Does there need to be a hero? Sometimes you don't have to have a hero. So a lot of people think there's a one hero's journey approach. That's only one structure of telling a story. There's multiple. There's 8 basics. There's go Google them. Google story structures. You're going to get so many. So it's not necessarily a one, size fits all on the main characters and what the characters do. Think about antagonists. Who are they? How do they play the part? Sometimes antagonists are not a person. They could be, another corporation, or a feeling you have, a fear. That's something that's stopping the growth of the company as itself. So that could be antagonism. So list all these characters that could play into the brand story. Define who they are, put a name to them, and then define the plot. How do you want the story to unfold, right? It can unfold immediately, start with the climax, and you can go out with a bang, depending on your audience. How do they like the content to be served, right? They like long, drawn-out content. Okay, then build it up. There's a structure called the mountain. You build until you get to the climax. There's many ways to tell a story. And then you define the conclusion. What is that, again, key takeaway? 1, don't build 3, don't build 5. Nobody remembers those. One thing that you want them to walk away with, if they needed to walk away with one thing, what would that be? That's your conclusion. That is your point, of the story. So
I love
that's
that. Okay. So I feel like I can already hear the questions from the audience.
okay.
So, okay, key thing.
Yeah.
Is this all, okay, let's just say this is a social media post for Instagram or Facebook.
Sure.
Are we talking about all of this being in one copy, in one caption?
Depends. It depends on your audience. Sometimes audiences love. I know from what I've learned. I know the younger women, ages I want to say 20 to 25. They love long story captions on an Instagram. They just love to read a whole like book on someone until there's no characters left. I don't know why they do. They love it. They really do. They love Instagram stories. They want that content to be the same thing you posted, broke it up now in little gifts and blows and whistles. So you have to learn your audience. I can't answer that generally because your audience will guide you into how to break that content or what to do with the content. With IT pros, we learn. With engineers, we tried everything. We tried podcasts, we tried interviews, we tried everything. Nothing worked except for pointer blogs. They want pointer blogs, a blog that it's, and we found out through this testing phase of design thinking, they want another engineer to explain things so they feels one-to-one, but they also wanted to point to a deeply technical content because they like to read. So they want something that gets to the point, but it's also personal from a blog perspective. So how we found that out, I guess, was testing. We said, well, we empathized with our audience. We found out where they were. We posted it there. And then whatever didn't get engagement, we knew that's not what they wanted.
Okay, so the second part to my question.
Yeah.
With the story, is it actually a story? Like, am I making up names for my characters and like actually creating like a legit story?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Sala. I think a lot of people get confused. So there's two things on brand storytelling. One is your brand story, which is the story of why your brand exists. Mm-hmm. So if I have a business, I need to be able to tell why my brand exists. What does it make me? Why does it exist and what does it make people feel, right? That's the story of the brand. And then when you integrate brand storytelling into your content, now you're taking any content that would typically be considered marketing content and you're using stories. So you're putting it in story form and you are using character, plot, and conclusion to tell a story that would probably be an ad. Right. So let's say this in a practical example. I have a business and my business is to, I create phones. And so my brand exists. My story is my brand was born in 1992, and out of necessity, because I didn't like the other phones that existed. It's a chic phone, so my brand exists to make chic phones for chic people and make them feel chic. Let's just say that. Now, when I go out there and I start talking to my audience, let's say it's this younger audience that I mentioned before, I talk about them because they're my mentees, so I know a whole lot about them as an audience. So if I'm selling this phone to them, now I can tell different stories, right? I can say, hey, I'm gonna talk about Elizabeth who bought this phone and she bought the latest phone. Elizabeth, how does she feel about this phone? So now I'm creating marketing content to market my product in story form. And I may go on Instagram and have an Elizabeth go out there and be like, oh, look at the new features, my phone. And I feel this way and it makes me feel like this. So now she's the character in the story and my phone is enabling her to feel that feeling that I set out to do, to feel, posh and good about herself and confident, all the things that I want my product to make my audience feel. So now it becomes a story. She's the story, she's the character, but she's really driving my brand story across the channels, if that makes sense.
That's perfect. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, just in the conversations I've had with people, the immediate thought when you hear storytelling is like, okay, I'm writing like the next Disney movie or something.
Yeah, no, this is just inserting, so it's basically encapsulating your content in story form. You add a character, a plot, a conclusion, and the feeling, can't forget the feeling. So ask yourself, what emotion do I want to seek from my audience? And then who do I insert to drive the story through? It could be math, and the math is the product. Numbers are the product. But if you insert a character to be able to walk the audience through that product, then now it becomes a story form. There's a plot, there's a conclusion. People walk away and go, wow, I was exposed to content, but the content was not just the content. It was a story. I remember now. It's a once upon a time.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah, so that's fine. And then you get to ideate, which is my favorite part of storytelling. Ideation is, because you've taken the time again to empathize. Now you've made a list of characters, possible people that can go out and tell a story. You've ideated your plot, your conclusion. You've decided how many stories you can have, and you should have different stories. For us at Microsoft, for example, clearly we have stories for 12-year-old Xbox players, and then we have stories for IT pros, in the field like Azure and in cloud computing. So while our feeling is empowerment stories are going to look a whole lot different for our, Xbox players than they're going to look for our IT pros. So again, the empowerment is the feeling, but the stories will look different. And so in ideation, you get to brainstorm. That's actually the piece of ideation. You brainstorm ideas. You brainstorm what I call story concepts. Should my story be a blog? Should my story be a video? Should my story be in TikTok? I don't know. Test it out. Think about ideas. Create prototype concepts that comes from the ideation phase. So one of the things that you can do is storyboard. You can do mind mapping. You can do so many things. So with mind mapping, there's a free tool out there, and you can start with that word, that feeling, right? So again, back to empowerment. Let's say we start with empowerment. And then you can build what empowerment means to all of your possible audiences and what you think, how it's going to land and what ideas, and just get creative. This is the most creative piece of storytelling. And then map it out and see what empowerment may look like physically, visually, as a feeling. And then create the prototypes. So the prototypes is the fourth step. Prototypes are actual ideas that have become concepts, and you say, well, now this is actually a story I can put on Instagram. Let me just go test it. And so it could be in a video form, it could be a blog, it could be anything, any type of story. It could be a PowerPoint presentation, whatever story you're looking for. And then you got to test it. That's the last piece. You test it in the market. And the beautiful thing about storytelling with design thinking is that because it's emotional, it's supposed to be emotional in essence. If it doesn't work, you'll know right away. People will not respond. That's it. If it is, you'll know immediately. People respond to emotional content because it's driven by emotion. So that's it.
Oh my gosh. Again, I love the way you break it down. I mean, of course it's in your book, but hearing you actually say it too, and then provide examples, it just, for me, it clicks.
Yeah. And it's so easy. I think people just, they confuse. I used to confuse myself with this idea of storytelling. I was like, do I have to tell a story every time? What does it look like? Do I have to create something every time? No. Create your brand story. And from there, start testing little concepts that go and tell the story for you in different forms, and get super creative. It's an idea of Belfast Approach. I'm going to go test it, see if it fails. Okay. If it doesn't, go back and idea it again, and empathize again, do it again. It's not one big story that needs to just, land really nicely and lots of effort. It's low cost, low effort.
Now, I know you've already given us examples of different types of businesses and brands that you've worked with personally, and that you've seen storytelling work for, but is there any industry, even the tiniest industry, where storytelling would not be relevant?
I don't think so. I have not seen that. I have worked with a lot of different industries. I've worked with banking. I've worked with credit companies. I've worked with, just you name it, health companies, ISVs. And I've worked in not only in the industries, but just the different layers of that industry. So people that serve there, people that fund it. Just so many different layers. And the reason it will not ever not work is because we are cognitively built to tell stories. We have always done it before the alphabet was created, before any means of other written communication. We just, at the cognitive level, we are built to tell stories. So it works every time. I think we overanalyze it, and it needs to just be simplified. The best way is, how could you explain to a 5-year-old what your company does? What does it do? And if you can do that with your, if you can explain it to a 5-year-old and they get it, that's a story, because they need story. You're going to find yourself telling a story to be able to tell them, because that's the language they speak. So test it with your 5-year-old, find a 5-year-old and be like, I want to tell you what my company does, and explain it. And you're going to find yourself telling a story. That's probably your brand story.
Love that. It's interesting because during this process, what I realized too is, back in the day when I had a job, had a boss, one of my favorite bosses, I remembered, he explained everything through story. And at the time, it was so nerve-wracking. It was like, okay, can you just tell me what you want me to do? Do you have to the point? Story? But I realized it's like I learned so much, and I remember
it.
Yes, I remember those stories.
Yeah.
And I got memorable. Yes, it was all there. And then
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and it actually made me, I believe, do my job better because
Sure.
I understood on that level what he was asking, what he wanted.
Yeah, it was an emotional connection. I mean, you have an emotional connection to the story, so you're connected through it. I was gonna say a story is 22 times any piece of content that's shared through story form. It becomes 22 times more memorable than any other piece of information you'll ever share. I mean, that's just so powerful. So it works. If and the thing is, again, I wasn't good at it. I'm not the best at it. You call me queen. I'm not. I don't know why because we continue to work on it. So it is a soft skill. Everyone can and should definitely begin to build that skill set. It goes in tandem, hand in hand with empathy. It has transformed the way that I communicate, the way that I do business. It has transformed my life. The storytelling, getting myself into that space and becoming a storyteller was something that truly changed the way that I communicate on every level, and has had a personal impact in my life, and not only on the business side. So I think it's multiple benefits that you gain from it, and if I can get good at it, anybody can get good at it. Again, I am like the least empathetic person on the planet, so if I can do it, you can.
Okay, a couple more questions.
Okay.
So, is there a difference or are they the same? Storytelling and copywriting. Do you need to
Yeah.
be good at both or does one support the other?
Yes. So copywriting supports storytelling. So again, copywriting can be just a specific piece of content for a specific channel, and it's not a story. It could be a fragment of the story. It could be pointing to the story. It could be introducing the story. So the copy really serves to support the actual story. It is not a story in itself. Usually, when you find copy, and I have a copywriter certification. So I speak with this authority of knowing how it serves best, and copywriting usually will serve to build a platform for storytelling. It really is not a story or in story form. It can be, but typically it's not. So when you do your copywriting, um, my recommendation is you build a story first, and then in your ideation phase, in your brainstorming, see what snippets of copies you can create that will actually be fragments of the story to bring it all together. In your customers mind, you're building the story always. A tweet is a piece of the story, an email is a piece of the story, a phone call is a piece of the story. So they're weaving it together every time they come in contact, at every touch point with the brand. So copy really serves for that, to remind and be consistent on the story. One thing that will always serve is if you have that keyword always, they will immediately begin psychologically associating your brand with it. So if it's empowerment, if you hashtag it all the time, if you mention it all the time, if it's part of your copy every single time, it's not a whole story, but you're consistently adding to the brand story. The brand story is about empowerment. So they will begin to associate that word, that feeling with the brand story.
Oh, so good. I don't know about you guys watching, but for me, now knowing how powerful the empathy part, the feeling, and capturing that as a word is a game changer.
It is. And it was for me. It was exactly what changed the story for me, because I didn't get it. I was like, well, if I add a character, okay, what does that do? How does that change? And it's not that. Those are the elements. The true magic of storytelling is the emotion. And it's back to, the wonderful Maya Angelou, who said people won't remember what you said. They won't remember what you did. They'll remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
And that's what we remember. So it's that magic. It's like, I don't know what she said, but wow, I was inspired, or I was empowered, or I was elated, whatever it is. So if your brand can do that, you're cutting through all the content noise and all the digital noise, because you're connecting with the heart of the customer.
So good. Okay, we're almost done, unfortunately. Okay, so as far as a small business owner,
yeah,
and maybe right now they are still wearing majority of the hats, they're handling their own
yeah,
marketing, social media, all of
I
that.
know.
Aside from, once again, getting your book, where do they go to learn this? I mean, you're saying it's a soft skill, it can be taught, but I mean, how long is that going to take? Because the time is of the essence,
Yeah.
right?
No,
And
one of the things, oh, I'm sorry. I
no, I
need
was
to
going to say, so where do they go or start?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of resources, but one of the things that I was going to kind of start with is so often entrepreneurs will want to separate their person from the brand itself.
Mhm.
and they want to build the brand, and they're focused on the brand without recognizing they are the brand. And they are building so much of that platform at the beginning. So don't be afraid. You are very much the heart of that story at the beginning. Your why, you saw a need, you saw an opportunity, you have the brand story. So ask yourself your why. Why did you decide to go with this? Why did you decide to build this business? Why was that important to you? What's that conviction in your heart? That is the brand story. And so begin with that, and that allows you to really drive a different kind of a different feeling to your brand story than trying to get my brand exists for this only and like focus on the product. Focus on yourself as the entrepreneur, because that really is how you're going to grow your business the most emotional way. With that, learning the empathy, learning those skill sets as such as storytelling. There's so many resources online that you can find. I'm not going to ask you to buy my book. I'm asking you to go out there and educate yourself on how to best pitch yourself, because the brand is you. You decided to build this business, and you get to pitch it to people. You get to get the funding. You get to say, this is my why, right? So you watch things like Shark Tank. They have a story. They always come with a story. Why I built it because, why I did this because my brother and I, because that's the story. So people, again, don't worry so much to be like the technicality of my story, my brand. You are the story at the moment. Your brand will grow and hopefully be very successful, but it starts with you. So educate yourself in pitching your own, or it's called the origin story of your brand, and find those resources. Where? Many places. You have LinkedIn Learning, you have YouTube, you have many different snippets of information on Medium. Literally, you can just type brand storytelling or storytelling skills. There are many ways to tell a story, and there's many people sharing right now on how to tell a story. The only thing I will say, don't get stuck on one way to tell the story. Like my teaching is about designing stories. I don't know what works for your audience. I can't pretend to know how to tell the story for your audience. You get to build that for yourself. So empower yourself to be a storyteller, a story designer, a story lord, and begin to go with the intuition. One of the things that entrepreneurs have is intuition. That's why they built this business. So go with that same intuition that you have, and the same passion for your business, and know, with your heart, know where the story leads for your audience.
Gold. Okay, my dear, final words. What do you want to leave us with?
Yeah, so I in this entire space that I've been doing this, and I've been very fortunate to be able to share insights. The one thing I want, if you learned nothing today, please walk away with your heart is the center of it all. The heart that made you want to open up that business, that made you want to explore something new, that made you go out there and be scared and try something and explore. That's the same heart of the story. So tap into that every single time. Go with that intuition. We're seeing brands, well-established brands, that are tuning into what we're calling feminine attributes. That's intuition, that's communication, that's care, that's empathy. I don't know why we call them feminine, but it's interesting to note that the leadership attributes that were once salesy and harsh and bottom line are no longer working. So you go with that very built-in intuition that entrepreneurs have, both male and female, and go out with that to tell the story. Don't be afraid. Use the channels. Nobody's gonna build your brand like you are. Nobody's gonna tell the story like you are. So empower yourself. Use your voice. Use the channels, and watch the magic happen.
You're amazing.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you.
Okay, one more question, final question.
Okay.
I have to ask it because this is the Passionpreneur series, and I ask all of my experts this.
Okay.
Have you found your passion?
Yes, I have. Yes, that's a great question. I have found my passion. I have. And it took me a while. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a process. I think that you don't just find your passion in one space. I think your passion begins to come out in different little adventures that you take in life, and in a journey that you find, and in different people and spaces. My passion and my legacy, so they're both, is to truly help people in their spaces. I'm a communications professional, and I have the innate ability to cut through noise and create concise content. A lot of people don't know how to do that. So to be able to share my own techniques and things that have worked for me, so that everyone, from not only an entrepreneur perspective, a kid, and a teenager, anybody, can take their own story and package it up in a way that serves them in life. That is my passion. When I see people, when I see students call me and say, "Hey, Miri, I was able to tell my story in an interview and I got the job." Yes, that's what I live for. I'm like, yes, I've had, and that's my fuel. That's my gasoline. When I get those emails of success stories of people saying, I tried this and it worked, because it works. So being able to share my insights, that's my passion, sharing my insights so that others can pass it on. They can grasp it, learn. Sharing knowledge, to me, is the most important thing. Education is powerful. So
I love it. Thank you so much, my
I'm
dear.
gonna ask you the same thing. So now it's back to you. What is your passion? Tell me.
You know, this is funny. No one's ever asked me this.
See?
At first. You know what? And being 100% transparent and honest, I'm still working on it. You know, I feel like this show, for example, complete surprise. You know, I haven't actually said this on the show, but you know, this was
breaking news, everyone.
Yes, this was a challenge. My business coach was like, "You're going to do this. I want you to find 20 plus experts to go interview and just talk with them." And I'm like, "I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that. I don't even want to be on camera. What are you talking about?"
I love it. I love it.
I kid you not, by the third interview, I was hooked. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." Like, to have this access to be able to talk with someone and get that information and share it. I love that. So I feel like more than ever, I'm getting closer.
I love it. I love it. That's great. Yeah, you're on the same lane as me. Or we're driving on the same lane. We're on the same highway. Awesome. Well, I'll see you at the end of the road, hopefully. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited for what this is doing. I hope your audience is enjoying. I know they are. They're very passionate passionpreneurs that you bring on the show. And, I'm excited for you, Brandy. I think you're doing great work. So thank you for having me. I'm honored to be part of it.
Thank you. How can we stay in touch with you? Where do we find you online?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, mirirod.com, MIRIROD.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. So Miri Rodriguez on LinkedIn, on Twitter and Instagram at Miri Rod. I try my very best to connect with everyone, and I do answer every email. I know that's insane. I spend a lot of time and night time to respond to every possible email that I can, and I pride myself to say that, because if I'm coming out here to talk about empathy, I need to be prepared to be empathetic to my audience. So if you have a question that I didn't get answered here, you want to connect with me, I'll be more than happy to gift you a little bit of my time and help you out if I can.
Perfect. And just so you guys know, in case you missed that or you don't want to do a replay right now, all of that information will be below in the bio caption of this part of this show, and also on the website. Miri, thank you so much again. I am forever grateful for your time, your wisdom, your friendship, everything.
Thank you, Brandy. I'm gonna close with a story, because we need to tell the story. So I got on Zoom. I'm moving. Can I show?
Yes.
I'm actually moving right now. I'm in my living room and my movers are out there. And Brandy said at the beginning, we've been kind of trying to do this for a while. I keep changing and rescheduling on her. So I was like, I'm not gonna do this now. My movers were supposed to be here Saturday, but they for some reason they couldn't. So they came on Monday. So I was like, I'm not gonna move this one appointment. I've moved her so many times. Anyway, point is of this story that I didn't know this was gonna be a video, and also I had my bun. I look terrible, and I told her, give me 2 minutes. I'm gonna put on red lipstick and be ready, camera ready. So here we are.
And it was
so moral of the story. And then you told me, so I was like, all I need is a little blush and a little lipstick. So what is it that you need to be camera ready? What is it that you need?
And mascara.
Done. So please figure out what you need to get ready in 2 seconds. That's a key takeaway. That's a life hack, everyone.
I love it. The life of entrepreneurs. You make it work.
It really is.
You make it work.
This is it. So find out what it is. Find out what you need. If you need mascara, go get it. You have it ready for you.
I love it.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you so much.
Be well.
We will be in touch.
All right. Bye.
Bye, you guys.